The jungle moon of Karos 9 was never quiet. Even at night, the air hummed with unseen life. Leaves glowed faint blue under the twin moons, insects clicked like tiny machines, and distant creatures called to one another in voices that sounded too deep, too old, to belong to anything gentle. The human outpost sat like a metal scar at the edge of the forest. Built for mining and research, it was surrounded by tall fences, sensor towers, and warning lights that blinked endlessly. Humans did not come to Karos 9 to make friends. They came to take resources and leave alive. Ethan Cole walked the perimeter with steady steps. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and quiet, the kind of man who did his job without asking questions. He wore standard security armor, scratched and worn from months of patrols. His rifle rested easily in his hands, not raised but ready. He had learned early that this moon punished carelessness. His helmet scanner showed no threats nearby, only the usual signs of movement deep in the forest. Large life forms, fast ones, dangerous ones. He ignored them and kept walking. Most nights passed like this, long, tense, but uneventful. Then he heard it. The sound did not come from the usual places. It was closer, softer. Not a roar or a growl, but something broken and weak. A thin cry that cut through the jungle noise like a blade. Ethan stopped. He turned his head slightly, adjusting his helmet's audio filters. The sound came again. A short, shaking noise. Fear. He frowned. Protocol was clear. No off-route exploration. No contact with native wildlife, especially not Zerathi. Everyone on Karos 9 knew the Zerathi. Massive feline predators with striped hides and glowing eyes. Highly intelligent, highly territorial, known across several systems as unstoppable hunters. Humans called the adult females Tigress mothers because once they had young, nothing survived crossing them. And that sound, it was small. Ethan stood still for several seconds, weighing his options. Then, with a quiet breath, he stepped off the path and into the glowing jungle. The forest swallowed him quickly. Thick vines brushed his armor and soft light pulsed from plants that reacted to his movement. He moved slowly, careful not to make noise. The sound led him deeper, past twisted roots and fallen stone. Finally, he saw it. Curled beneath a broken branch was a cub. It was no larger than a medium dog, with striped fur that shimmered faintly silver and gold in the moonlight. One leg was bent at an unnatural angle, blood dark against its hide. Its eyes were wide, glowing softly, locked onto Ethan with pure terror. Ethan froze. A Zerathi cub. His heart hammered in his chest. Every training session, every briefing, every warning echoed in his mind. A cub meant the mother was close, very close, and if she found him here, weapon raised or not, he would die. Slowly, Ethan lowered his rifle and set it on the ground. The cub hissed weakly, trying to pull itself away, but pain stopped it. It cried again, louder this time. "Easy," Ethan said, his voice low and calm. "I'm not here to hurt you." He didn't know if it understood words, but tone mattered. He took one slow step closer, then another, stopping when the cub tried to scramble away. He knelt. The cub's injury was bad but not fatal. A broken limb, likely from a fall or an attack. Ethan had treated worse on humans. His hand hovered over his medkit. If Command found out, he would be punished. Maybe sent home, maybe worse, but leaving the cub like this meant death. Alone, injured, calling out into the night, Ethan made his choice. He worked carefully, moving slowly, letting the cub see his hands. It trembled but did not strike. He cleaned the wound, set the bone as gently as he could, and wrapped it in a flexible brace designed for emergency field repairs. The cub cried once, then went silent, breathing hard. Minutes passed. Then the ground trembled. Ethan felt it through his knees. A deep vibration, heavy and controlled. The forest grew still. Even the insects went quiet. He knew what that meant. The Tigress mother had arrived. Ethan did not turn around. He did not reach for his weapon. He stayed exactly where he was, one hand still resting near the cub, his body between it and the darkness behind him. A massive shape stepped into the light. She was enormous, nearly 3 meters long, her striped hide marked with old scars. Her eyes burned gold, filled with intelligence and fury. Each step was silent despite her size. She could kill him in less than a second. The cub let out a small sound. The tigress mother's gaze snapped to Ethan. Time slowed. Ethan raised his empty hands slowly, palms open. His heart felt like it might tear itself apart. He forced himself to breathe. "I helped," he said quietly. "That's all." The tigress mother's tail lashed once. Her muscles tightened. She smelled him, his fear, his species. She stepped closer. Ethan felt her breath on his face. He did not move. She looked past him at the cub, at the wrapped leg, at the blood that had been cleaned instead of exploited. Her ears shifted. For a long, endless moment, nothing happened. Then, impossibly, she sat down. The ground shook slightly under her weight. She folded her massive form and watched him, unblinking. Ethan almost collapsed from shock. Slowly, carefully, he leaned back and moved away from the cub, giving her space. She did not attack. She did not growl. She stayed. Hours passed like that. Ethan remained kneeling, exhausted, eyes burning, muscles locked. The tigress mother never took her gaze off him, not hostile, not friendly, judging. When dawn light finally crept through the glowing leaves, Ethan activated his communicator. "Security to base," he said softly. I need assistance." The response came instantly, sharp and confused. "Cole, your signal is off route. Explain." "There's a Zirathi cub," he said. "Injured, the mother is here." Silence, then shouting. "What are you doing near it?" Soldiers rushed to stations. Ethan heard none of it. The tigress mother stood. She stepped closer to him, lowering her head until her glowing eyes were level with his face. He could see his reflection in them. Small, fragile. She leaned forward. Her forehead touched his helmet. A soft vibration passed through her chest. Not a growl, something else. Ethan froze, barely breathing. Then she turned and lay down beside the cub, curling her massive body protectively around it. And she did not leave. As the first human strike teams reached the edge of the forest, weapons raised, they saw something that would change everything. A human standing unharmed beside a Zirathi tigress mother, and neither of them moved away from the other. The jungle watched. And the galaxy, though it did not know it yet, held its breath. Morning light spread slowly across the jungle of Karos 9, turning the glowing plants soft and pale. Mist lifted from the ground, curling around trees and metal structures like quiet breath. The night had passed without violence, but tension hung heavier than ever. Ethan Cole stood exactly where he had been for hours. His legs ached, his mouth was dry, and his hands trembled slightly inside his gloves. Still, he did not move. Not even when distant human voices echoed through the forest. The tigress mother lay beside her cub, her massive body curved like a living wall. One powerful foreleg rested protectively across the small form. Her eyes were half closed, but Ethan knew better than to believe she slept. She was aware of everything. The cub stirred, making a soft sound. Ethan's heart lifted when it tried to move its injured leg and then stopped, confused but calmer than before. It was alive. Safe for now. From the edge of the trees, the human strike team finally appeared. 6 soldiers moved carefully, weapons raised, armor shining under the morning light. Their leader, Captain Reyes, lifted a hand, signaling them to stop. Her eyes were fixed on the enormous alien form only meters away from Ethan. No one spoke. The tigress mother opened her eyes fully. The air changed. Ethan felt it before anyone else did, a pressure that made the world feel smaller. The soldiers stiffened. Fingers tightened on triggers. One wrong move could turn the clearing into a battlefield. Ethan slowly raised one hand. "Don't," he said, his voice low but firm. "Please." Captain Reyes stared at him through her visor. "Cole," she said carefully, "step away from the creature." "Now she's not attacking," Ethan replied. "She hasn't all night." "That's because she's waiting," one soldier muttered. The tigress mother's head lifted slightly. Her gaze moved from Ethan to the armed humans. Her tail flicked once. The cub pressed closer to her body. Ethan took a slow step forward, placing himself clearly between the soldiers and the alien family. "If you fire," he said, "she will kill us all, and the cub will die too." Captain Reyes hesitated. She had seen reports, numbers, simulations. None of them prepared her for this moment, a human standing unharmed beside one of the galaxy's most feared predators. "What do you want us to do?" she asked. Ethan swallowed. "Lower your weapons." Silence stretched. Then slowly Captain Reyes lowered her rifle. One by one the others followed. The tigress mother watched closely. When the last weapon was lowered, her posture relaxed just slightly, not enough to be safe, enough to notice. Over the next hours, scientists arrived at the edge of the clearing. They stayed far back, using scanners instead of steps. Drones hovered high above, careful not to cross invisible lines. Data streamed into the outpost, rewriting everything humans thought they knew about Zerathi behavior. She did not attack. She did not retreat. She stayed beside Ethan. When he moved, she moved. When he sat, she watched. When he drank water, her eyes followed the motion. There was no aggression, only awareness, connection. The cub healed faster than expected. By the second day, it could stand briefly on its braced leg. It sniffed Ethan's boots with curiosity, then bumped its head gently against his knee. He froze, then slowly smiled. The tigress mother allowed it. At night, she did not leave. She rested, but always with one eye open. If any human came too close, she shifted, reminding them of her power without using it. Days passed. The outpost changed. Weapons remained powered down. Patrols were rerouted. Commands sent messages filled with disbelief and caution. Off-world observers watched through long-range feeds, stunned into silence. This was not how Zerathi behaved. On the fifth day, something new happened. The tigress mother rose suddenly, body tense, head lifting toward the sky. The forest responded instantly, birds fleeing, insects vanishing. Ethan felt the warning before he heard it. Hostile ships entered orbit. Pirate raiders, scavengers who preyed on weak colonies and remote outposts. They had come for resources, unaware of what waited below. Alarms screamed across the outpost. Soldiers rushed to defensive positions. The tigress mother stepped forward, placing herself directly in front of Ethan. He looked up at her, understanding slowly forming. "They're not ours," he said softly. "They're enemies." Her ears twitched. She smelled threat. She felt the cub tremble behind her. The first explosions shook the ground as raiders landed outside the perimeter. Human defenses fired back, but they were outnumbered. The outpost's shields flickered under heavy fire. Then the tigress mother moved. She ran. Not toward the humans, toward the enemy. Her speed was terrifying. She crossed the clearing in seconds, vanishing into the jungle with a roar that shook the sky. Other Zerathi answered. Shapes moved through the trees, drawn by her call. Ethan watched in stunned silence. The battle ended faster than anyone expected. Raider soldiers were torn apart or driven back in panic. Vehicles were crushed. Weapons failed against claws and teeth guided by intelligence, not rage. The tigress mother fought like a storm with purpose, always pushing the enemy away from the outpost, never toward it. When silence returned, the jungle belonged to her. She came back at dusk, her hide marked with fresh scars but her steps steady. She stopped in front of Ethan, studying him. Slowly, she lowered her head. Ethan reached out, hesitated, then placed his hand against her fur. It was warm, alive. She accepted the touch. From that moment, everything changed. Word spread across the galaxy. Humans were no longer just miners and explorers. They were something else. A species that protected the young of others, even when it meant standing alone against death. The tigress mother stayed. When Ethan walked, she walked beside him. When he slept, she rested nearby. When the cub followed him clumsily, she allowed it. Scientists named the bond something they barely understood, a guardian mark, a life debt beyond language. Ethan never asked for it. He simply chose kindness. Months later, when supply ships arrived and ambassadors watched from afar, they saw the same sight again and again. A human man, an alien mother, a cub growing strong between them. No chains, no commands, no fear, only trust. And the galaxy learned a truth it would never forget. Humans did not rule through strength alone. They ruled through the courage to protect what was helpless, even when the universe told them not to.